when Jesus tells a storm to be still and it actually listens, you realize you're not just reading another story about faith, you're actually reading and meeting the one that creation itself obeys. And that is a pretty powerful thing. We are just going to jump straight into our reading today. We are on day 296 in Mark. Chapters 4 through 6 is what we're going through today, and they are a little lengthier. So, as I said, we're going to jump straight in. No dilly-dallying, as an old person might say. Not that I'm old, but yeah. Okay. Mark chapter 4. Again he began to teach by the sea, and a very large crowd gathered around him. So he got into a boat on the sea and sat down. While the whole crowd was by the sea on the shore, he taught them many things in parables. And in his teaching he said to them, Listen, consider the sower who went out to sow. As he sowed, some seed fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured it. Other seed fell on the rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and it grew up quickly, since the soil wasn't deep. When the sun came up, it was scorched, and since it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it, and it didn't produce fruit. Still other seed fell on good ground, and it grew up, producing fruit that increased 30, 60, and 100 times. Then he said, Let anyone who has ears to hear listen. When he was alone, those around him, with the 12, asked him about the parables. He answered them, The secret to the kingdom of God has been given to you, but to those outside everything comes in parables, so that they may indeed look and yet not perceive, they may indeed listen and yet not understand, otherwise they might turn back and be forgiven. Now, real quick, I do want to throw out, I don't remember if I mentioned this yesterday. So with the Gospels, and you may already know this, but I'll say it just in case. With Gospels, you have 3 different accounts from 3 different people that are telling the story of Jesus during his earthly ministry. Now, there may be some overlap in stories, so some stories you will see in more than one gospel, some stories you will only see in one gospel. And basically think of it as if you and 3 people got to witness somebody for 3 years, and then you had to write down all of what you thought was the most important information to go back to a specific group of people. What you write is probably going to be different depending on what stuck out to you, what was most important to you, and who your audience is that you're writing it for. So there are some things that are the same. There are some things that appear different. I've heard, and if we get to some of these, depending on the time that we have in the day, I may address it, or I may come back and do a video actually going through some of the things that people claim are contradictions. They're actually not. Most of these actually have pretty basic explanation, and it makes sense. But I just want to throw that out there. So you will see some similar stories that we've already seen in the Gospel of Matthew, and some that we will see in Luke and John when we get there, and some unique stuff too. Verse 13. Then he said to them, Don't you understand this parable? How then will you understand all of the parables? The sower sows the word. Some are like the word sown on the path. When they hear, immediately Satan comes and takes away the word sown in them. And others are like seed sown on rocky ground. When they hear the word, immediately they receive it with joy, but they have no root. They are short-lived. When distress or persecution comes because of the word, they immediately fall away. Others are like seed sown among thorns. These are the ones who hear the word, but the worries of this age, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things enter in and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. And those like the seed sown on the good ground hear the word, welcome it, and produce fruit, 30, 60, and 100 times what was sown. He also said to them, Is a lamp brought in to be put under a basket or under a bed? Isn't it to be put on a lampstand? For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, nothing concealed that will not be brought to light. If anyone has ears to hear, let him listen. And he said to them, pay attention to what you hear. By the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and more will be added to you. For whoever has more will be given to him, and whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. The kingdom of God is like this, he said. A man scatters seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises night and day. The seed sprouts and grows, although he doesn't know how. The soil produces a crop by itself, first the blade, then the head, and then the full grain on the head. As soon as the crop is ready, he sends for the sickle because the harvest has come. And he said, with what could we compare the kingdom of God, or what parable can we use to describe it? It's like a mustard seed that when sown upon the soil is the smallest of all the seeds on the ground, and when sown it comes up and grows taller than all the garden plants and produces large branches so that the birds of the sky can nest in its shade. This is one spot that I've heard before, and I'll bring this up just to kind of show a little bit of what I'm talking about. So people have tried to discredit the Bible by saying, here, this says that the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, but it's not. So why is it that this is mentioned as the smallest of all seeds? Well, it's probably because the people that he's talking to, that was the smallest seed that they had reference of. Like, it'd be completely pointless to bring up a plant that they had never heard of or they were not familiar with. Right? So there's reasons behind some of the stuff. It's not actually a contradiction or an error. It makes sense if you read it in context. Verse 33. He was speaking the word to them with many parables like these, and they were able to understand. He did not speak to them without a parable. Privately, however, he explained everything to his own disciples. On that day, when evening had come, he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the sea. So they left the crowd and took him along, since he was in the boat, and other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. He was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, Silence, be still. The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Then he said to them, Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? And they were terrified, and asked one another, Who then is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him. Chapter 5. They came to the other side of the sea, to the region of Jairus. As soon as he got out of the boat, a man with an unclean spirit came out of the tombs and met him. He lived in the tombs, and no one was able to restrain him anymore, not even with a chain, because he often had been bound with shackles and chains, but had torn the chains apart and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and knelt down before him, and he cried out with a loud voice, What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you before God, don't torment me. For he had told him, Come out of man, you unclean spirit. What is your name? He asked him. My name is Legion, he answered him, because we are many. And he begged him earnestly not to send him out of the region. A large herd of pigs was there feeding on the hillside. The demons begged him, Send us to the pigs so that we may enter them. So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs. The herd of about 2,000 rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned there. The men who tended them ran off and reported it in town and the countryside, and people went to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting there dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs. Then they began to beg him to leave the region. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged him earnestly that he might remain with him. Jesus did not let him, but told him, Go home to your own people and report to them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So he went out and began to proclaim in Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and they were all amazed. When Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and while he was by the sea, one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet and begged him earnestly, My little daughter is dying. Come and lay your hands on her so that she can get well and live." So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd was following and pressing against him. Now a woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years had endured much under many doctors. She had spent everything she had and was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. Having heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his clothing. For she said, "If I just touch his clothes, I'll be made well." Instantly her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Immediately, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing against you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" But he was looking around to see who had done this. The woman, with fear and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed from your affliction." While he was still speaking, people came from the synagogue leader's house and said, "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" When Jesus overheard what was said, he told the synagogue leader, "Don't be afraid, only believe." He did not let anyone accompany him except Peter, James, and John, James's brother. They came to the leader's house, and he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." They laughed at him, but he put them all outside. He took the child's father, mother, and those who were with him, and entered the place where the child was. Then he took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha koum," which is translated, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl got up and began to walk. She was 12 years old. At this they were utterly astonished. Then he gave them strict orders that no one should know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. Chapter 6. He left there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. "Where did this man get these things?" they said. "What is this wisdom that has been given to him, and how are these miracles performed by his hands? Isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And aren't his sisters here with us?" So they were offended by him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his household." He was not able to do a miracle there except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. He was going around the villages teaching. He summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs and gave them authority over unclean spirits. He instructed them to take nothing for the road except a staff, no bread, no traveling bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not put on an extra shirt. He said to them, "Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that place. If any place does not welcome you or listen to you when you leave there, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them." So they went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons, anointed many sick people with oil, and healed them. King Herod heard about it because Jesus' name had become well known. Some said John the Baptist had been raised from the dead, and that's why miraculous powers are at work in him. But others said he's Elijah. Still others said he's a prophet, like one of the prophets from long ago. When Herod heard of it, he said, "John, the one I beheaded, has been raised." For Herod himself had given orders to arrest John and to chain him in prison on account of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. John had been telling Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias held a grudge against him and wanted to kill him, but she could not because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing he was righteous and a holy man. When Herod heard him, he would be very perplexed, and yet he liked to listen to him. An opportune time came on his birthday when Herod gave a banquet for his nobles, military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee. When Herodias' own daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guest. The king said to the girl, "Ask me whatever you want, and I'll give it to you." He promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." Excuse me. She went out and said to her mother, "What should I ask for?" "John the Baptist's head," she said. At once she hurried to the king and said, "I want you to give me John the Baptist's head on a platter immediately." Although the king was deeply distressed because of his oath and the guest, he did not want to refuse her. The king immediately sent for an executioner and commanded him to bring John's head. So he went and beheaded him in prison, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl. Then the girl gave it to her mother. When John's disciples heard about it, they came and removed his corpse and placed it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a remote place and rest for a while." For many people were coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. So they went away in a boat by themselves to a remote place. But many saw them leaving and recognized them, and they ran on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. When he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And then he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples approached him and said, "This place is deserted, and it is already late. Send them away so that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy themselves something to eat." "You give them something to eat," he responded. They said to him, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" He asked them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. When he instructed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass, so they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke the loaves. He kept giving them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate and was satisfied. They picked up 12 baskets full of pieces of bread and fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were 5,000 men. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of Bethsaida. While he dismissed the crowd, after he said goodbye to them, he went away to the mountain to pray. Well into the night, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. He saw them straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Very early in the morning, he came toward them walking on the sea and wanted to pass by them. When they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke with them and said, "Have courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. They were completely astounded because they had not understood about the loaves. Instead, their hearts were hardened. Now, something of note. Do you notice a difference between the story here and the story in Matthew? In Matthew, we see Peter get out of the boat and walk to Jesus and fall into the water. We don't see that in Mark. And Mark is Peter's testimony, or Peter's account of the gospel. Yeah, it could be. I don't think anyone really knows for sure, but it could be that that was still something that Peter was unhappy about, that he had a moment of not having faith there, and he didn't want to document that. But yeah, just speculation. When they had crossed over, they came to shore at Gennesaret and anchored there. As they got out of the boat, people immediately recognized him. They hurried throughout that region and began to carry the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. Wherever he went, into villages, towns, or the country, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch just the end of his robe, and everyone who touched it was healed. And that is it for our reading. But we have questions. Question 1. Why do you think Jesus taught so often in parables instead of speaking plainly to the crowds? He says it's because some people will understand and some people won't. And he says that there are some people he doesn't want to understand. Now, maybe that is, he doesn't want them to understand right then, because he does need people to turn against him, as we saw at the end of Matthew. He needs people to turn against him so that God's plan can be fulfilled. If everyone turns towards him and believes him, then there wouldn't be a crowd to be yelling, "Crucify him," and he wouldn't be crucified. And yeah, um, so that's kind of personally why I think it was, but because I don't have a Calvinist little slant on that passage, but it does say that he spoke in parables because some people would get it and some people wouldn't. What does Jesus calming the storm reveal about fear and faith in the face of life's chaos? So we've talked about faith is belief based on evidence. I think we see Jesus calm the storm more than once. We see Jesus calm the storm, and if he has that level of authority, and we know that he cares for us, he wants what's best for us, he loves us, then we can trust that he is going to do what it may not always seem like it to us, but we trust his character and we trust his authority. Even in life's chaos, even in the midst of fear, we trust him. Question 3. From the healing of the bleeding woman to the raising of Jairus' daughter, how do these miracles show both the compassion and the power of Christ? The woman with the issue of blood, she just had to touch his robe. Right? All she had to do was touch his robe. We see that at the end of chapter 6 as well. The people just had to touch his robe. Just getting in proximity to Jesus and believing that he was going to heal them, and they got healed. With Jairus' daughter, he spoke to her, and she got up. She was dead, and she got up. So I think both of these just show the power that Jesus has, the authority that Jesus has over sickness, over death, over everything. And again, like I said with the second question, if we know his character, we know he loves us, he cares for us, and we know the authority that he has, we should not fear anything, death included. Like we said, I think it was yesterday, or not yesterday, the last day of Matthew. Death is just the doorway, right? Death does nothing except for put me into the arms of God. So we have nothing to fear as believers. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as all those things help the channel grow. If this has been a blessing to you, you can share it with somebody else. It can be a blessing to them, and word of mouth is the best way that podcasts grow as well. So that can be something that helps this channel as well. Come back every single day. We're going to have more content every single day. Bible reading plan. We're going through the Bible an entire year, different teachings, all kinds of just really great biblical sound stuff like that. So you're not going to want to miss it. Come back, subscribe. Thanks. God bless.